Buenos días. Es el lunes y son las 12. Hello, everyone. It's Monday and it's 12 o'clock, so it's time for our first Community Spanish of the week, number 1 of 3, broadcasting Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 12. We also have Community French going on Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 8:30, and we also have officially starting this week Community Mandarin, which is going to be on Monday and Thursday at around lunchtime at 12:30. So please feel free to tune in for that and to learn some new Mandarin phrases. We're really excited to have this offering added to our Facebook Lives. We also have French and Portuguese going on our Instagram Lives. So there's even more to check out on the Instagram channel in addition to Facebook. One little reminder before we get into our topic for today is that the October class schedule is posted, so feel free to check out what's coming up and see if there's a good option for you, and let us know if you have any questions. There's many ways to get in touch with us if you do have a question, whether it's by email, by phone, text, Facebook. There's lots of ways. So just find the way that's convenient for you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help you out and find the right class. So let's get into our topic for today. And with today, we're really going back to basics, like very basic. So we're actually going to be doing a video on the alphabet today. So I wanted to basically, which I know is something that even just the very beginner students are going to find the most useful, but I think it would also be helpful for those of you who feel like you want to improve your Spanish pronunciation. This is going to be helpful for you for that as well. So we're going to be doing, of course, a lot of repetition to practice making the sounds together. And I'm also going to give you a few tips about pronunciation, not only just like how do we sound out the letters, but like how do you know which part of the word to stress and what are the accents and those kind of things. So I'm going to give you a few other tips in addition to just practicing the alphabet letters with you. So let's get started and start learning those letters and practice that pronunciation. All right, so por favor, repite después de mí. Please repeat after me as we do these alphabet sounds. And again, I'm going to say, and then please repeat after me. A. A. B. B. C. C. Ch. Ch. D. D. E. E. F. F. G. G. H. H. I. I. J. J. K. K. L. L. Ella. Ella. M. M. N. N. Ñ. Ñ. O. O. P. P. Q. Q. R. 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 S. S. T. T. U. U. V. V. W. W. X. X, Y, Y, Z, Z. Muy bien. Okay, so that's our first introduction to the alphabet sounds. So now we're going to go through it one more time, and we're going to practice these sample words we have on the right side, so we can practice to say these letters in the context of the word. And as we go, I'm going to give you a few more tips and notes about each of the letters. So, all right, so let's start again with A. A. And our example word here is animal. Animal. So that's A. And then next we have B. B. Like barco. Barco. Next we have C. C. Now we have an important note here on the letter C. So when we combine the letter C with the letters A, O, or U, which you see on the right-hand side, then we actually get a hard Ka sound instead of like the letter C. So for most of the letters, when we read the letter itself, that is the sound that the letter makes. But there are a few small exceptions. And so this one, in the case of C, the letter is pronounced C, but if the C is followed by the letters A, O, or U, we get a hard sound. So we get Ka, Ko, Ku. And if the C is followed by the letters A or E, as we see on the even more right-hand side, then we keep the soft S sound of the letter C. So we get C, C. Okay, so you can hear the contrast between C and C and Ka, Ko, Ku. Okay, so that's an important note for the letter C. Now, next we have Che. Che. Like China. China. Now, the letter Che is interesting because there's kind of two different forms of the Spanish alphabet. There's one a little bit older, and then we have the most modern, most up-to-date form of the Spanish alphabet. And so what you'll find is the letter Che is actually one that's included more in the older Spanish alphabet. And most very modern Spanish textbooks and things actually do not include the letter Che, because as we know, it's actually two letters combined that make the letter Che. So in the kind of more simplified modern Spanish alphabet, they wanted to say like, well, we don't really need the letter J because we can just say H, and then we can use those two letters separately. So there's something just to keep in mind that if you're seeing an older text, then you will most likely find the letter J. But in most modern Spanish texts, you actually would not find this letter in the alphabet at all. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, after J, we have D. D. Like dos. Dos. Okay, next we have the letter A. A. This one confuses a lot of English speakers because it sounds like the first letter of the English alphabet, which is A, but this is the Spanish, English E in Spanish is A, okay? Like elefante. Elefante. Okay, next we have F. F. Now this one is a case where the letter itself is going to sound a little bit different than the actual sound the letter makes. And what I mean by that is the letter is F, but when you actually pronounce this in a word, you'll notice that we don't have that vowel sound before or after. For example, we have the word flor. Flor. Okay, so you can hear, I don't say F-A-Lor or something like that with the A and the A sounds on both sides of the F-A as the letter is, but I'm just going to use the F sound. Okay. Now next we have hey. I can put more gunk in your throat if you want or less. So you can make it just light like a hey, or you can make it more hey. And so it depends on how you speak, exactly how you want to pronounce it. But most importantly, this is a lot of air passing through your throat as you say this letter hey. And now this letter is extremely similar to the letter C, which we already saw, in the idea that when it's combined with A, O, or U, it's going to be a hard G sound. And if it's combined with E or E, it's a soft sound. So we have ga, go, gu, and he, he. Now you notice that in the examples next to it that we can get around this light sound of the A and E by adding the U in between, and then we can keep the hard G sound. So those 5 words together we see there is ga, go, gu, ge, gi. So there are ways to make the hard sound with those other letters, but those 2 letters in combination, the he and A or he and E, by themselves will make a soft sound. Next we have the letter, oh sorry, we didn't the example word. For he is gato. Gato. Now, next on to the letter H. H. Now, H is a very interesting letter in that it has no roll. It's silent all the time. So this one is a little bit peculiar because in Spanish, almost all the time you will read what you see. So in this case, when we see an H, we actually should make it silent. So the example word there is hola. Hola. Not hola, but hola. Okay, H is always silent. Next, we have the letter E. E. Like isla. Isla. This one also can confuse English speakers because it sounds like the English letter E, but this Spanish E is English I. Okay, so they've got to keep track of those vowels. Next, we have jota. Jota. This is an example of another letter where the name of the letter and the sound it makes are not exactly the same. So we will take the h sound that we have in the start of jota, but when we actually see it in a word, we won't say jota. Okay, so but for example, our example word here is jirafa. Jirafa. Okay, so we don't say jota irafa, right? It's jirafa. Okay, next one we have after the jota is the letter ka. Ka. Like kilo. Ka is interesting in that there are no native Spanish words that start with ka. All of the words you might find in Spanish that have ka are usually adopted from other languages into Spanish. So there's very few words in Spanish that have ka. All right, next one we have is for L. L. Like luna. Luna. So this is another case where, again, the sound we make when we read the letter L is not exactly how we will hear it in the word because we're not using those vowel sounds around the letter. So when we say luna, we don't say L-una, it's just luna. Next one we have is for the double L. This is another one like che, which is considered in modern Spanish alphabet to be an extra letter that is no longer used. So again, depending on what text you see, you might see different versions of the alphabet. Some of them include the double L, some of them don't if they're a modern Spanish text, but we have included it here. So now the pronunciation of this sound together, when you have 2 L's, it actually makes a y sound. So the name of this letter is A for the double L. Eye, okay? Or in some areas where they pronounce that double L more like a hard J sound rather than like a Y sound, they're going to say AJ, okay? AJ for the double L. So we can pronounce it in a word like llave, llave, or llave. Again, it just depends on where you are exactly what the accent will sound like. All right, next on to M. M. Like mano, mano. Then we have N, N, like nube. So N, like L, is the same time where we inside the letter, we have this vowel sound, but when we say it actually in a word, we don't have the extra vowel sound. So that's why we say nube and not nube, nube, nube. Okay, next one is a special letter, which is the Ny, Ny. So we say this is the letter N, but it has a special squiggly on top called a tilde, okay, tilde. Okay, this makes a combination of the N with a Y sound, like a Y. So that's how we get Ny, like the word niño, niño. So this is a special Spanish letter that no matter what version of the alphabet you're looking at, whether it's new or old, you will always find Ny. This one it cannot be gotten rid of. Okay, next we have O, O, like oso. P, P, like patata. Next we have Q, Q, like queso. And then Q is interesting in the fact that it must always be combined with the letter U after it. So we cannot ever have the Q by itself. It's the same as in English. So you see this, the examples there, we have ki and ke for sounds, some examples. But again, the U always comes after. Next we have R. R, like perro. Now, R is one of the most challenging letters for many people learning Spanish because it's a sound that maybe doesn't exist in a lot of other languages. And it can take a lot of practice, so don't get discouraged if you can't get it right away. I know some students have to work on it for a very long time before they can get it. So please be patient with yourself. Essentially, when you're making this sound, it's the sound of your tongue bouncing up off the top of your mouth and the bottom just very fast. And that's what makes the R sound. So it does take a lot of practice to do, and you kind of, if you're a beginner and you're not really sure what to do, try to do it very slow first. And I know it's going to sound funny and feel funny, but it's that practice that will get you to making the sound. Or another thing that I often tell students to do, especially my younger students, is that if you know how to make the sound that a cat makes when it purrs, that's also a good guidance for you to help start you making that letter in Spanish too. So that's another, maybe a little trick for you if you know how to emulate cats. Okay, so that's R. Now next we have the doble R of the R, basically just drawing out that R a little bit longer than the first one with just one R. And this, like che and like ella, is another letter that often most modern Spanish alphabets do not include a double R. They just have one R. So it's very optional. And then we have for that, the example word is perro. Okay. So there's a really small difference you can hear between perro and perro. One being the word but, and the other one as in like, I understand, but I don't agree. And the other one is perro with 2 R's, like dog. Okay, next we have ese for ese is the letter, and our example word here is sal. Sal for ese. Next we have te. Te. Like the word tú. Tú. Next we have u. U. Like uva. Next we have ve. Or uve is an alternative pronunciation, but most people I know say ve. And you also hear some variety among Spanish speakers. Some people pronounce it more like the v sound, and some people make it sound more like a b sound. So both of them are correct. It just depends on what the particular person's accent is. So you can say v like vaca, or you can say like vaca, and both of them are correct. Next we have W. W or W. W. Two different pronunciations. This one, like the letter K, there are no native Spanish words that involve this letter. So it's only words that are taken from other languages that will have W, like for example, windsurf, for example word, which is an English word originally. Next we have X. X. Now this one, many people will know from the beer brand, which is called Dos X, which if you see the commercials, so that helps you to remember this letter X. But when we see this word actually in a word, it's not really pronounced like X. It's pronounced more like an S sound actually. So or it can be more like an S or even more like a het sound. So this one is very versatile, and depending on where it is in the word, it may make a different sound. So for example, in this example, what we have is xilófono. So here, this one is an S sound, so xilófono. But for example, the country of Mexico, we pronounce it Mexico, okay, like with a H sound. So depending on where it is in the word, there can be a little bit of variation of how we're going to pronounce the X. Okay, second to last letter, we have this one is called Y. Y. So it's kind of a long name for a letter. And as some other letters that we've seen so far, we're actually not going to pronounce this in a word like Y. It's going to sound either like E, like the other letter we've looked at, E, or it's going to function with a hard Y sound. Like in our example word, we have yo. Okay, yo. But this letter on its own, if you just see a Y written, it can mean the word and we pronounce it like E when it's on its own. But if it's in front of another vowel, then it's a hard sound. So here's how we get yo. Okay, yo. Now, onto our last letter, we have zeta. Zeta. So you notice this one, I'm also pronouncing it kind of like an S sound, but also as something specific to this letter, if you're in Spain, the accent is a little bit different, and they actually pronounce this one like a TH sound. So they call this letter zeta, okay, zeta. But all the other Spanish-speaking countries around the world pronounce it like S, so like zeta. So our example word, so please repeat this after me, repite después de mí, zapato, zapato. Muy bien, zapato. Okay, now we have just a couple more notes, but as we wrap up this video, and I think we're going to actually expand, and with the next video we can use to get more practice, because there's just a lot to cover in the alphabet. So, but I'm going to wrap this up pretty shortly. The one last thing I wanted to mention in this video is about accents. So we have essentially two different kinds of accents in Spanish, and we've seen these in some examples here. In the words we've seen. So for example, we have xilófono. You see this is the accent mark, the little tick up to the right. Or for example, on tú, we also have another accent there. So basically what this tells us to do in the word is to make that letter the strongest one in the word. So we're going to put our stress there. Now, normally in Spanish, when we are pronouncing words, our automatic pattern we should do is we should put stress on the second to last vowel. So if you go to look at a word and you look at the last vowel, which is either a, e, o, or u, or a, e, I, o, u in English, and then we go back one, and that's where we should normally put our stress in Spanish, and we're going to practice more about that in the next video. But that's what we normally do. So basically what the role of these accent marks are is to tell us when we should do something different than what's our normal. So for example, if we look at a word like xilófono, if we have no accent there, our natural pattern should be to say xilófono, right? Second to last vowel. This one right here. This one right here. But because of this accent, it tells us, it brings our attention to say, hey, you should do something different here than the normal. So that's what the accent rule is about. And that's where our most common accent in Spanish is that up to the right. And we just can call this in Spanish acento, or an accent. The other one we did see was the tilde, which we mentioned here, which makes the y sound, which will only appear on the letter n. But so those are the main two things that you want to keep an eye out for in Spanish. So with that, we're going to wrap up our video for today, but please tune in next time on Wednesday at 12:30 for our next video, which is going to follow this one and give us more practice with these alphabet letters. So that's all for today, and please remember to take a look at our website if you want to see a library of all of these live videos that we've done, in addition to some extra resources. And also our class schedule is posted up there, so please feel free to check this out in the meantime, and I will see you next on Wednesday at 12 for the follow-up on this letters and pronunciation alphabet video. Gracias y adiós.